y'all? Welcome to Wednesday. Excited to chat today because today is going to be a little juicy. Okay, so first off, just a quick review, kind of where we're at with things. Wanted to connect with you guys. Love your posts, your mindfulness posts and your check-ins. I'm reading all of them. And I know that Emily has been kind of coaching you guys through some of this stuff. And you know, these are just such good conversations to have because oftentimes when you do a nutrition program or you do a fitness program, there's not really a lot of space for people to feel as though it's okay to mess up or to feel that it's okay to struggle at times. And really, you know, I've coached for long enough now, and Emily has too, that I know that that's part of the process. And even people who have been doing this for years still have moments where they have to go back to basics and they have to remember some of the real foundational stuff when it comes to mindfulness. And I never want you to feel ashamed or embarrassed if you check out for a time. You know, what we're doing here is tough. You know, the easier thing would be to just, you know, try and slot yourself into some sort of meal plan or food list or something like that. But we all know that that's a Band-Aid solution, right? That's something that it's like, it's easier in the short term. It feels organized. It feels like I have control of my life. But at the end of the day, we always fall off and we always end up potentially overindulging or binging as a result of that deprivation. So I want to just reiterate and recognize that you guys, the work that you're doing now is a lot harder right now than just simply doing a meal plan or slotting yourself into some sort of diet. But at the end of the day, honestly, I promise this is so much easier. And ask Emily, ask anyone who's made this transition. I know some of you guys have been trying and practicing this for a while. At the end of the day, this is literally the easiest way to live. And, you know, I noticed a lot of comments this week of people, you know, kind of just in their head a little bit about maybe gaining weight or feeling like, you know, maybe they're gaining inches or they're doing too many preemptive cheats and things like that. And I also want to remind you guys that, you know, this is only week 8 of like the next like 8 years or 18 years of your eating journey. So welcome to forever. And also realize that over the course of the next, you know, 8 months, 8 years, whatever, your body's probably going to change at times. You know, for me, I'm way more athletic looking now than I was 5 years ago. And I probably weigh a little bit more. My body composition has changed quite a bit, but it's changed over the course of 5 years, not 5 weeks, not even 5 months. And so I know sometimes we want to see those really fast changes. We want to like lose weight right away, or we want to see muscle definition right away. And I think that at this point, what I would focus on, and you guys, most of you are focusing on this, is your relationship to food. Because at the end of the day, if you have these foundational pieces in place, mindfulness, moderation, abundance, you know, all these kind of things that we've talked about, DNCs, preemptive cheats, satisfaction factor, and you're tapping into those fairly consistently, not every single moment of every single day. I know sometimes this can feel draining, but if you're constantly coming back to those foundational pieces, you are building a skill set that is going to serve you far beyond these 12 weeks. And so I just want to remind you guys that the work you're doing now is foundational stuff. You're going to look back on this a year from now and be so grateful that you took this time and you engaged with this process. And I promise you, I've said this many times, your metabolism is so smart. So long as you tap into that mindfulness piece, look, you're never going to eat perfect ever again, ever. I haven't eaten perfectly in 10 years. But it's precisely because of that I have not had huge swings in my weight. And I know I've said this a couple times, and I've worked with people who have done this. You know, I used to gain and lose the same like 20 pounds multiple times within a year. Not only is that from a physiological standpoint completely unhealthy, but from a psychological standpoint, it's completely unhealthy. And so I want you guys to think more in like minute changes. So if you're feeling like, like maybe I'm gaining a little bit of weight, or I'm you know, maybe feeling a little puffy or whatever that is, realize that it's probably transient. And your metabolism it's recentering itself, it's recalibrating itself. And so the good news is that the work that you're doing on your nutrition right now will continue to serve you moving forward, so that later on, the only variable you'll probably have is your training. So for me, I eat the same all the time, whether I'm traveling, whether it's vacation, whether I'm home, whether it's a holiday, whether it's, anything. I eat pretty much the same. And when I say the same, I mean the same level of satisfaction, right? Preemptive cheats, DNCs, you know, satisfaction factor, mindfulness, eating to 80% fullness, intermittent sampling, like all these tools that we've been talking about. So for me, even if someone held a gun to my head and was like, you need to do the keto diet, I would be like, shoot me, because honestly, like I just can't. So for me at this point, and I'm sure Emily feels the same way, we have found what works for us And there's no amount of sexy, fun, novel, interesting diets that could pull me away from doing what works for me. So really, when you're at that place, you can think about, eating isn't really going to be the variable anymore. At some point, eating is not going to be the variable. The variable will be your training. And so that's the good news about this, is like at some point your eating becomes so foundational and so automatic and so automated that really the only thing that kind of changes is your training. So when I say I have a lot more of an athletic looking physique now than I did 5 years ago, that's just training. That's literally just training. I'm probably drinking a little bit less alcohol than I was 5 years ago because I was going through a divorce. But pretty much that's the only thing that has really changed. And I have a tan because I live in Southern California. Like literally those are the only things that have changed. And so I want you guys to remember what the long game is, and try your best to not get super caught up in just like these minute changes that are happening day to day. Your metabolism is so dynamic that it is always readjusting based on inputs. So all you need to do and all you need to remember is come back to the basics. Okay, am I being mindful? And don't judge it. Don't say you're bad, you're good, you're right, you're wrong. Just go, okay, am I being mindful? And start with that. Okay, so today I wanted to share with you guys some sort of juicier topics. And these topics, the reason they're juicy is because they have to do with other people. They have to do with our relationship to food and how we interact with other people. Now, one of the things that I get asked about quite a bit is, Jill, how do you handle it when people make comments about your food? Or how do you handle it when you're out with a bunch of people and you feel peer pressure to eat something or drink something that you don't really want? Or how do you handle, comments from people who are food pushers or want you to have something that you really don't want to have? Or maybe you do want to have it, and how do you handle that too? And so I want to talk about a couple of topics. The first we did touch on, I think maybe last week or the week before, on choices versus decisions. And I think this is really important because at the end of the day, all of our food choices, we need to own our choices. We need to own our choices, whether we're at a restaurant, whether it's vacation, whether we're at home, whether we're with one other person, 20 other people, 50 other people. We need to own our choices. And really what this comes down to is, do I know myself and do I know my body well enough to know what I want to eat, just what I want to eat in general, without considering other people, where I'm at, what I'm doing, etc. And so I'll give you guys an example. Like, I don't know, let's say you want to go to the county fair or something, and we know that there's a lot of junk food at like a town fair or county fair. And I like to use this example because there's just so many, quote, temptations. And oftentimes we will do some situational eating. We'll go, well, this only happens once a year, so let me get my fried dough, or let me get my, whatever, corn dog or whatever. And it's not that those things are bad necessarily, but oftentimes we don't really want them. We can feel satisfied but not go all the way. And so we can feel satisfied but not have to get like the grossest thing at the fair. So asking yourself, so for me, again, I always know, no matter where I am, I'm prioritizing protein and fiber. Fiber being mostly vegetables, right? Fruits, vegetables, etc. Now, that doesn't mean that my food is gross. I mean, I want it to taste delicious, so I'll have a sprinkling of dietary fats or a little bit of, even fried food or something like that. That's more of a condiment. So I'll probably choose something like a turkey leg or something like that. So I'm going, okay, I'm gonna have a turkey leg. And that doesn't mean that I might not have a couple bites of someone's, fried dough, or have a bite or two of someone else's candy. But I know for me, my choice is always centering protein and vegetables, delicious protein and vegetables, but that's always what I'm centering. And then I go, how can I increase the satisfaction factor of this? So is a turkey leg an ideal choice? No, I mean, but it is protein, even though it's fried and whatever else they do to it, but it is protein. And I know for me, that's the key. So my choice, no matter where I'm at, is protein and veggies. I go to the Cheesecake Factory, I go to, I don't know, a 5-star restaurant, whatever it is, that's gonna be my goal. I'm not gonna be like, ooh, I'm at a 5-star restaurant, let me get like fettuccine Alfredo. Look, fettuccine Alfredo is delicious, but I know how it's gonna make me feel at the end of the day. And I know at the end of the day, I can feel satisfied without having to go all the way. Now, do I wish that someone else on the table would get fettuccine Alfredo so I could have a couple bites? Yes. But if they're not, then I'm not getting it either, because I know what my choice is. Now, a decision is where I take into consideration all the things. I consider where I'm at, I consider other people, I consider other people's feelings, how my choices are going to affect them. And that is essentially being at the mercy of someone else, someplace else, and that's not making a powerful ownership choice. And so the choice is, what am I getting regardless of what's happening around me? And a decision is, let me consider, let me look at the menu and let me see what they have, right? Like a decision is swayed by other people's considerations or situational eating, environmental situations. All of those things are, they're just considerations. And while you shouldn't beat yourself up if you find yourself doing that, realize that the power really lies in making a choice regardless of that. So I wanted to give you guys that overview because this really comes down to discernment. Like, what's the thing that I really want? Like, I'm showing up, what's the thing I really want? And what could I go without? I'm constantly asking myself, like, do I really want this or could I go without this? How could I feel satisfied without going all the way, right? I always talk about navigating the middle, and that's really what we're talking about here. So this is a mindfulness practice and a discernment practice. So all of that to share a couple of insights around peer pressure, around what I call calorie matching, boundaries, other people making comments about your food. So at the end of the day, well, first of all, calorie matching, let me just kind of define that for you. And I'll post after we get off an article that I wrote on it. And calorie matching is just a term that I created that goes, okay, like if I'm around other people, sorry, I keep having these texts come in. If I'm around other people, I'll go, well, what are you gonna have? Or, ooh, are you gonna get dessert? Or, ooh, are you gonna get a pasta dish? And I'm constantly trying to see what the other person is gonna order, and so that I can order in kind and we can both be off the hook. So it's like, ooh, are you gonna get fries? Okay, I'll get fries too. Ooh, are you gonna get dessert? Okay, I'll get dessert too. It's almost as if someone else's choice cancels out the choice that I'm making. And it's like, okay, so we're matching calories, but still, that's a consideration, right? That's not a choice. A choice is going, what do I want? Regardless of what other people are eating, what is it that I really want? And this takes a lot of confidence, right? This takes a lot of confidence to know, and it takes a lot of self-awareness to know the work that you guys are doing right now. Calorie matching is when you use what someone else wants to get. Like, we're at happy hour. Okay, you're gonna get another drink. Okay, I'll get another drink. And again, it's fine. You should not feel bad about it. You shouldn't beat yourself up about it. But at the end of the day, it's not really what you want. So just be aware of that. That's key. And the second thing that I want to share with you guys is around peer pressure. All these text messages coming through, sorry. So peer pressure. This is a good one because I know you guys have food pushers in your life. I know you have, maybe you're at the office and it's someone's birthday every day, or you have a mother-in-law, or you have a family member that is constantly pushing food on you, or telling you need to eat more, or telling you like, what's the big deal? The interesting thing about this is, when you start practicing this at holidays and special events, or, whatever, or vacations, people will go, well, just eat what you want. Like, it's just one day, or it's vacation, eat what you want. I hope that at the end of this practice and this transition for you guys, that what you want is something healthier. It is navigating the middle. I hope that is what you want. So when people say that to me, like, oh my God, Thanksgiving's one day, have what you want. I do eat what I want all the time. I eat what I want every single day. So that shouldn't feel different. And so when it comes to peer pressure, the key here is confidence in your own choices. And you guys are doing the legwork for that in this program. So you guys I can see you're kind of cutting the considerations. You're owning your choices. You're being more discerning. You're having more mindfulness. And so at the end of the day, you have to have a level of confidence in your food choices and then detach from how that's received by other people. So for example, if someone was, trying to get me to be like, oh my God, you have to have some of this. Like, I know you're so good all the time. You never eat anything, but like have a slice of this. It's so delicious. And my whole thing is, it's fine to have a slice, no worries. But, for me, if it's just like a sheet cake from Costco or something, like, I don't want that. Like, I'd rather, if I'm gonna have cake, I wanna have something that's like delicious and that like I really want. So I'm gonna make that conscious choice. But if someone's pushing food on you, it's easy when you have the confidence in your food choices. You can say stuff like, unfortunately, like, I'm just not at a place right now where I wanna have a bunch of cake. I feel super satisfied right now. I don't wanna feel super full. right? And what's interesting about this is that maybe some people they might feel threatened by that, or they might feel like you think you're too good for the cake, or too good to be like everyone else, right? Remember, someone is going to comment on your food because they might feel bad about their choices. They want to recruit you. Let's all be bad together. Bad, right? Let's all be in this together. Let's all eat cake because they want a calorie match too, remember? Because they think it negates the calories. So it's like, cool, we all want to do this together. So you have to catch yourself and detach from how that is going to make the other person feel. And that's what's really hard about this. But you have to have a confident detachment about you. What I have found in this practice, doing it more myself, is that people really respect people with boundaries. If you have a boundary around food, or you explain yourself, and remember, you never have to justify your choices. You don't have to, please don't lie. You don't have to be like, I'm trying this new diet and I can't have it. Like, be honest. I'm really trying to figure out, this is what I would say, I'm really trying to figure out what's going to work for me from a nutrition perspective, because I don't want to keep dieting. So at this point, I'm just not feeling that right now. But, I want to make sure that I'm being super conscious of my eating and just, kind of having exactly what I want. And that's just like, to me, that's just not a thing right now. So I think it's okay to have a confidence and then detach from how that might make other people feel. And that's what's hard is, a lot of this does come down to us considering other people's feelings. And that's a good trait. We want to be someone who's empathetic, but that's why I think instead of shaming them back and saying like, oh, well, I can't believe you're having that cake, we would never do that. We just need to make it about us and our choice. And I think sometimes lying and saying like, oh, I already had a piece, or, oh my God, I had so much cake yesterday, or, I'm super full. Like lying, or saying like, oh, I'll have some later. Like, try not to lie, because at the end of the day, it's going to be better for you in the long run to really own your choices and then detach from how other people see that. So you can say something like, I love cake, but I'm just like not super feeling it today. That might be valid. And, so a lot of this is kind of nuanced, but I think it's really important that you own your process and then openly and honestly communicate about your process. You don't have to explain everything you're doing, but you can say, you know what, I'm trying something different. In the past, I've done a whole bunch of diets that just like have never worked. So I'm really trying to like double down and figure out what's going to work for me long term. And, I'm not sure if that's like cake right this second. It might not be. So I'm just like feeling into my mind, like I'm just practicing mindfulness and practicing moderation, and it's working really well for me. So if you tell someone like, I'm trying something new and it's working really well for me, like, what are they going to say? Oh, fuck that program. Like, they're going to be on board, right? You just have to honestly state that you're trying something new and it seems to be working for you. And so you never have to apologize for your eating. I think explaining it in an open, honest, communicative way, people respect that. And so owning your process, I think, is extremely important. It is also, on the flip side, not your job to manage or police other people's eating. Now, I know most of us, probably wouldn't do that, especially because we want someone to consider our feelings. So we probably are not like going out there, talking to people about moderation and mindfulness. Of course, if you want to, that's totally cool. But we don't also need to be evangelists for this process. And oftentimes when people come to a place where they find something that works for them, we see this all over the internet. People who have lost 100 pounds with a keto diet, they think keto is the only way to go. People who have sensitivities and went, gluten-free, or they went paleo, and it completely changed their life. Now they're evangelists for paleo. And so I think resist the temptation to have any one team. Now, for me, the way I eat is fairly low carb and it's fairly high fat. So I might be like, yeah, there's parts of how I eat that are keto-ish. There's parts of how I eat that are paleo-ish. There's parts of how I eat that, are fasting-ish, but I don't subscribe to one way of eating, right? It's moderation 365. That looks different for everybody. And so I think detach also, or recognize even when you start to feel triggered by someone else's eating, because this is going to happen, you guys. This is going to happen quite a bit, especially because you guys are having success with this way of doing things, and you're starting to feel some wins, and you're starting to feel like this is amazing. And for sure, talk about it with other people if they ask you what you're doing, and talk about it, but also detach from if they get it or not. They might not get it. You guys have been here for 8 weeks now, and you see just how nuanced this process is. So if you start to get triggered by someone else going on a diet, that's a good kind of signal to yourself to check yourself. Like, what do you care? Like literally, what do you care? What do you care if someone's doing hours of cardio? What do you care if someone's doing some sort of crazy, shake diet? What do you care if someone's doing some keto or paleo or fasting or any of these other things? If you find yourself being triggered by that, that's a you issue, right? Because who cares? Like, let people have their own process. For me, and I'm sure for you guys, especially now that you're having some wins, it's tough to watch people do yo-yo dieting, right? To do some crazy thing that you're just like, I know that shit's not gonna work. Like, we kind of are starting to see that. So sometimes it can be hard. It can be a temptation to want to, mention something, or if you get triggered to want to like educate someone. If someone asks you, that's great. But at the end of the day, like, this is your journey. And I always say that people are going to come around, like, for me, and you guys know in this group, I've said multiple times, like, hey, like, I'm not attached to if you are committed to this or not. Like, I hope you are, because I know this works. But I know for a lot of people, this is tough. This is like giving up a lot of control at first to have the reward of trusting yourself, but that's a whole process. So I always say things like, you can always go back to the old way. This isn't going anywhere. The old way is not going anywhere. It's just you get to decide if you engage or not. So I think if you find yourself getting triggered by other people's food choices, that is also a signal to yourself to check yourself and put your blinders on and eyes on your own paper, right? Like, and really kind of detach from what that means, because at the end of the day, and this is the key, how someone else eats has nothing to do with how you should eat for you. How someone else eats has absolutely nothing to do with how you should eat for you. And this is a confidence thing, right? And at first it's going to be tough, because you are going to see people doing, the cookie diet or something and losing weight and going back to Weight Watchers and losing weight. And you're going to see these people. And I need you to trust and know that that's transient. Like, I'm sorry, but a diet always has a shelf life. There's always a time at which you're not on the diet. And guess what happens? If you don't do the foundational stuff that we're talking about in this program, mindfulness, moderation, abundance around food, if you're not doing those things, then you're just putting a Band-Aid on it. A diet is just a Band-Aid. It's just like, let me slot myself into this and see if this works. Sure, I could maybe white knuckle it for 12 weeks and lose 20 pounds, but I guarantee 30 pounds is coming back on. And you guys have to have a level of trust in your own process and a level of trust in yourself that you're doing the work for you. And what other people are doing means nothing, right? And like, whatever they're doing is fine. So remember, when you notice that stuff, because you are going to get pulled, you're going to get, someone is going to mention, oh my God, I'm trying the keto diet. You should do it with me. Or I'm going back to Weight Watchers. You should do it with me. You're going to get those things, and you're going to feel the impact of those things, and you're going to get FOMO, and you're going to feel like, well, maybe I should. And my whole thing is like, it's fine if you do, but also be mindful of that. Okay, I'm going to do keto. If you start to find yourself in obsessive thoughts again about food, you have to come back to this, because at the end of the day, it's really about your relationship to food. It's not about the food. It's not about the amount of food. It's about your relationship to food, because if you master this, then the food takes care of itself. It really does. So I think when it comes to all of the peer pressure type stuff, it really has to do with you owning your process and owning what you're doing. And that kind of goes to the last thing I wanted to share with you guys, is people commenting about your food. Now, this is really tricky, because we get triggered. We're like, why the fuck do you care? Right? Like, why do you care? Like, why are you commenting on my food? Sometimes people will comment like, it's almost like it's maybe a passive aggressive, like, oh my God, you're so fit, I can't believe you have pizza, right? And you're like, well, yep, I do have pizza. Or maybe someone's like, oh, live a little, you never eat anything bad, like, or like, so it could be a comment on like a junk food, or it could be a comment that you eat too clean or you eat too healthy. And realize that any of those comments are coming from that other person's own sensitivity. Because if they were solid in what they were doing, then they wouldn't even feel the need to talk to you about what you're doing, right? So I want to create, for all of you guys, I want you to leave this process and be so just like in your power about this process and about what you do and about, what you're doing for you that's good, that you could care less what anyone else is doing. Now, if you're not solid on what you're doing, you're more likely to comment on other people's food. So it works both ways. We don't like comments on our food, but if we're not solid on what we're doing, we'll be more likely to comment on someone else's food. So just remind yourself of that. I experience this quite a bit. because you guys know I do eat fairly low carb. Again, not because low carb is better for fat loss or anything like that, but just I could take or leave most carbs. So for me, I have a higher fat diet. I like rich food. I don't eat quite as much volume as I used to. And whenever I share on social media how I'm eating, I inevitably get people who are like, you eat no carbs. How come you don't eat any carbs? And so it's as if they don't know that I've done this work on myself and I just slot myself. It's like to me, sometimes I'd rather that I did eat carbs because then people would feel better about how I eat. But at the end of the day, it's not about justifying anything. It's about owning your process. So when it comes to people commenting on your food, I like to use a tool by positive psychology researcher Michelle Galen. She has a book out, and I forget what the name of the book is, but it's about positive psychology, and she has a tool that she uses called the power lead. The power lead is an energy that you bring to a conversation where you start out on a high positive note so that someone else won't go low. So for example, let's say I'm eating something and someone's like, live a little, just, why don't you always eat so healthy? Like, why don't you just why don't you split a pizza with me or whatever it is, right? People want to feel better about their own choices, so they're going to comment on yours. The power lead, if you know you're going into that situation, maybe it's someone in your family, maybe it's a friend that you always knows comments on your food, come with the power lead. You start first with the high energy and the excitement about what you're doing. So that would look like, yeah, I'm actually so excited. I'm actually doing this thing called Moderation 365. It's like this really just super kind of mindful way of eating, and nothing's really off limits. But it's just, it's practicing portion sizes, it's practicing mindfulness, and it's been going so awesome. I just love it so much. So that is an example of you coming with the high positive energy about what you're doing instead of being brought down to the space the other person might be in. So the other person might be feeling bad about themselves. They want you to feel bad. And so oftentimes we'll make excuses because we want the other person to feel good. We'll be like, yeah, I'm really struggling. I'm still so struggling. I'm 5 pounds up. Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't downplay your effort to make the other person feel good. You don't need to tell them that you need to lose weight still and that, you haven't had it mastered. You don't have to go negative to make them feel better. Go high and be an example of the kind of energy that we're bringing to these conversations. So if someone comments on your food, you can be self-deprecating and stuff like that, but own it. You're doing a lot of work here. So when it comes to your relationships, you have to be the one out in front owning your process. You're never going to get it from someone else. You're the one who needs to get on board with what you're doing. And if you're constantly worried about what people are saying, then you're not on board yet. And that's okay. That's a practice. You're not quite on board yet with what you're doing. Because if you're on board with what you're doing, anyone could be doing anything around you and it doesn't matter. It's good luck to you. I'm sure it'll be great, right? So, but deep inside that you're doing something for you. That is good. So ownership is key. You never have to justify your food, good or bad. This is a bigger conversation about owning your process and having confidence around what you're doing. And of course, in this group, it's easy to feel confident about what you're doing because we're all doing it. When you leave this group and you don't have people cheering you on and I'm not seeing you every week, that's where the true test is going to come through, is asking yourself okay, am I solid on this? If you find yourself doubting, come back to the group, rewatch the videos, come back, to this program and look at all of the mindfulness insights here, and then ask yourself, do I want, and I would never fault you for this. I would never judge you for this. If you wanted to go and just do some off the shelf diet, I wouldn't ever judge you. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that you'll be back here. I truly believe that you'll be back here and want to have a good relationship to food so that you're not controlled by food, you control it, right? You're in control of the relationship. Food is not controlling you. And for a lot of us, most of us have a history of food controlling us. It's a false sense of control. I'm being good. I'm in my house with my food and I'm, eating out of Tupperwares and everything's controlled. That's food controlling you. Now, when we practice this, the highest order of control is really trust. That's where we're trying to get is cool, let's go anywhere, anything you want. So now my practice when people are where do you want to go to eat? I always say, I can find something anywhere. it's just a mantra. I can find something anywhere. I can find something anywhere. No issues. I can find, people be like, I know you eat so healthy. Like, where do you want to eat? I can find something anywhere. Pick anywhere. Like literally, we can go to McDonald's and I'll find something. It's totally fine. And so that is just a signal and a mantra to my higher self to remind me that I'm the one in control, that I'm the one who trusts myself, that I can trust myself in any situation. And it's just a good reaffirmation of what we're doing here. So that's all I had for you guys. And this is going to be an ongoing conversation. Come back to this video whenever you need a little bit of a, little pep talk. Give yourself a little mental pep talk around this stuff, especially if you know you're going into a situation where people maybe talk about your food or make comments about it. And just remember, like at the end of the day, it's not your job to evangelize. It's not your job to justify, but it is your job to honestly communicate your process and really own your process. And that comes down to you being confident that what you're doing is something good for yourself. Okay?